founding fathers, take a look around. Is trouble coming? Are we going down? Mother, daughter, and your brother too. Get your mind straight when it's up to you. Hey, you gotta see the storm a-coming. Hey, you gotta feel it coming through. Hey, you gotta see the storm a-coming. Whoa, it's coming after you.
Okay, this is Reflections of an Uncommon Common Man. This is Greg Seagroves. I'm with Tammy Sharp. I'm with Jimmy Catrone and my grandson Connor McDaniel. And this is the first podcast after this mess we call an election process for president. Well, my first question is on a scale of 10 to 1, how mad are you?
That's easy.
11?
Yeah, off the charts.
Okay. Yeah, I'm same way.
I don't know that I'm mad. I'm just like, we should have known they were going to do this.
Well, I've known all along.
You know,
but-
we should have known that they were going to do something. And regardless of what party you are, you want free and fair elections.
Right.
You know.
And that's the thing. Anybody, whether you're right, left, and if anybody is even objective, they have to know this election was stolen. You know, at the very least, a lot of shenanigans went on. You know,
Lots of shenanigans.
and you know, the world's, to me, we live in a world gone mad because here's the thing: in 2010, the Republicans won the House because of two things: Obamacare and open borders. Okay. In 2014, well, you know, we heard during those 4 years that the Republicans told us, well, we can't do nothing until we get the Senate, you know. So if you want us to get something done, get the Senate. 2014, the Republicans won the Senate, and they've had it ever since, okay? It was over the same two things. Obamacare, they wanted Obamacare repealed, and they wanted our borders closed, okay? This, you know, if you polled the American people didn't like Obamacare. This is Democrats and Republicans alike. Independents, same way with open borders, okay? 2016, Donald Trump wins the White House because of open borders and Obamacare, okay? Because Republicans, you know, they had the House and the Senate, they still didn't do anything. And they still haven't done anything in the Congress, okay? So you're going to tell me in 4 years the American people have changed that radically. In the middle of a pandemic, you're going to open your borders to Hispanics to flow across this border because to fulfill the Democratic fantasy of getting more voters, okay, in the middle of a pandemic, and that people still don't care about, you know. Of course, they've kind of, you know, thrown out this, what do you call it, Medicare for all business. You know, I don't know how much appeal that had. I'm sure it had a lot of appeal. But still, I don't think that, you know, I know the demographics have changed, but I don't believe that we're at the point that hatred of Donald Trump and electing a man who can't even remember his name, and the possibility that a radical feminist is going to be president, I just don't believe the American people are there yet.
I don't think so either.
You know, and
You can't convince me of that.
no, and I mean, what? And look what you're giving up. You're opening your borders back up. You're raising your taxes. You know you're going to raise your taxes. I don't think the American people, that's a popular item with the American people. They want low taxes. You know that if they have a chance, you've had all this disorder in the streets and chaos,
That they tried to hide.
that they've tried to hide. But I don't think they've hidden it that well. Okay. I mean, just nothing makes sense. Nothing at all makes sense. And the only way that I can explain it is through voter fraud. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, unless American people, have suddenly changed that much in 4 years. I don't believe it, What do y'all think? Yeah.
I agree with everything you're saying, but on the point of Republicans seeing it coming, I think there's you guys have heard little inklings of Trump and the watermark and stuff on some of the documents and some of that stuff. I don't know how true that is, but there's these little rumblings. I'm watching Newsmax and not really Fox anymore because they burned us, and I hope they crash and burn. But there's little rumblings about the Republicans knowing, and really more specifically, because you can't trust all the Republicans, but Trump knowing about this, and he made some preparations for this thing coming. And I'm getting little things about that. You hearing anything about that stuff?
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm reading this book right now. It's called "Fraud: How the Left Plans to Steal the Next Election." It was written in 2018. It was pre-COVID. Now, I'm sure I've kind of thumbed through it. I've read several chapters, but I haven't got to the COVID chapter yet. So apparently they didn't know about COVID in 2018. Which is understandable, but they're pretty much right on when it comes to everything else,
But why wouldn't they predict it? There's a history.
Well, but
we have a documented history
Right.
of voter fraud,
right,
and it's clear which states to look for where the
Right.
voter fraud is going to occur,
right,
and you know all the players.
right.
You know who the governor is and who the state legislature is, and it's very easy to track and follow and predict where they're going to make their attempt.
Well, here's the thing that's so overwhelming is the fact that you've got so much money, so many lawyers on the ground. It's focused on nothing but keeping our election system in. First of all, on most state levels, there's really not that many safeguards to avoid fraud.
Yeah,
Except for like states like Tennessee, you got a voter ID law, which in those states have voter ID law, they have less tampering with the vote. Okay, there's no other reason on God's green earth that you could fight a voter ID law, except that you want to cheat. But here's the thing, to show you how some of the things Trump did. In 2016, he made the accusation that 3 million illegals voted in the 2016 election. And that makes sense because I guarantee you that probably the vast majority of Hillary's popular vote margin that she won by was probably illegals. And most of them probably from California and areas like that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Trump got together a bipartisan committee to study voter fraud to try to figure out what's going on with our election system and the fact that we're voting illegals. There was so much opposition. George Soros, the Open Society Foundation, all these other groups had so many lawyers bombard this committee that they finally just threw their hands up and quit because they were getting so many legal challenges.
Well,
and
maybe on the surface, but it's if you open up this Pandora box, and then they come screaming, and with attorneys and Soros money, if they shut it down, if I'm Trump and I'm part of that group, I'm not going to walk away from it. I'm going to know that's where we need to keep an eye on, and that's what we need to keep track
Right.
of. Maybe they bombarded us with legal flow of documents and stuff, but we still know.
But they always use race as their basis. They always say that you're trying to suppress the vote, and that's how they win, is based on race. And it's funny to me that I feel like my vote was suppressed this time. When you can't even investigate something. And here's the thing, the Brennan. I think there's a group called the Brennan Group. I think is the name of it. And also the mainstream media and the DNC, they all come up with this thing about, oh, man, you got more chance of being struck by lightning than finding voter fraud. Well, it's to their advantage to say that,
Wait a
But-
minute.
I'm serious.
Wait a minute. Well,
that's
in
kinda like
the
a poll. You can pay
primaries,
him
in
money
the
to vote.
primaries, didn't they say, oh, they screwed Bernie over, they screwed cheated, they screwed Bernie over, and now there's no election fraud?
Well, but they,
Isn't that odd?
but they say stuff all the time, like we don't have a memory. We don't remember all this
I
stuff.
just think that's funny.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sure there's some dude out there who's complaining about Democrats cheating Bernie.
They screwed
They're
Bernie.
the same guys
Not
saying
once,
it's
but
not
twice.
possible.
They screwed Bernie twice,
Not
Yeah.
once or twice.
But like Rush said, he got paid off. They bought him several houses and all this stuff.
He got
So-
paid
You didn't hear a
off.
word from him.
Got his hair pulled.
Oh yeah,
you didn't hear a word from Bernie.
Well, that's because Bernie's a coward and he's
Yeah.
probably too old to think himself.
Well, he's a true socialist. He didn't want to have to work for what he has anyway. As long as you give him the money.
And he's a capitalist when he wants to be.
Yeah.
Right,
He
right.
I was looking forward to when Bernie Sanders was president. He dies, and they remake Weekend at Bernie's with him, and then got Pelosi sitting there propping up his body.
Well, the one
White House at Bernie's.
the one I actually thought they might do a weekend at Bernie's was when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. I thought they would try to prop her up and run around with her.
Well, I will tell you, Trey Haggart had Instagram and no telling where else ads out there if you wanted to be a poll watcher or watch the polls. And I literally signed up twice because when I lived in Davidson County, I did it. I was trained and went and watched the polls. That was 2000. That was interesting. Then almost the same repeat. But never got one phone call.
Yeah.
Not one phone call. And I said I would work anywhere.
Yeah.
So, a lot of this is on us and the Republicans that are sitting back and going, oh, well, we're going to work with them and everything. Okay, yeah, there's a time to say that, but now's not the time. Now is to say, let's count every legal vote
Right.
and see where the chips fall.
Right.
And of course, we're going to work with them. We've always that's been our downfall. That's been our Achilles heel. We'll work with them. We always work with them. But when it's time for the turnaround, it doesn't ever work.
Well, I
that way.
read about a guy. He's a Democrat, and he's voted both ways. He's voted sometimes, Republican, sometimes Democrat. He's I didn't know they still existed, but he calls himself a conservative Democrat. Okay, but he's voted both ways, and he volunteered to be a poll watcher in Pennsylvania, and they let him in the building. But they won't let him near the ballots, and they're counting all the stuff over on the other side of the room, and he can't get over there. And they even had a court order saying that they had to do it. They still won't let him, watch the ballot.
They moved. I think they were supposed to move the watcher 6 feet. Well, they moved the watcher 6 feet, and then they moved the ones that were counting the vote 6 feet. So they were just moving the goalposts. I mean, it's amazing.
And see, here another thing is, in this, just take Pennsylvania for example. Pennsylvania has a governor. I think his name is Wolf, and he's a Democrat, and I think both houses of the Pennsylvania is Republican. And I don't have the copy of the Constitution in front of me, but Constitution says, I believe on Article 2, that the electors will be chosen by the state legislature. Okay? It doesn't say the state Supreme Court. It says the state legislature. And so what Wolf did, he got around the legislature by filing all these lawsuits to get to, because he got around the state law. The state law said you had to have your ballots in by election day. You had to, the signature on the ballot had to match up with the registration. There were several things that were supposed to get done. Well, he went around and got all that changed, by 5 Democratic hacks on the Supreme Court. Okay, that's totally illegal. Just on that basis alone, the Supreme Court ought to throw that out. And there is precedent. I was reading in here about, of course, this is on a mayoral, but in the early 1900s, a mayor's race, they stole the election, and they had been in office for a year, and the court made them leave office and put the other people in there. So it's been done before, But anyway, you were talking about, and see, obstruction is one of the biggest things we face. And I was reading about this lady. Her name is, let's see, she started an organization called True the Vote. Her name is Catherine Engelbright, and she's from Texas. And so she had owned a small business and had never been audited by the government or anything. This is back during when Obama was in power, okay? So she witnessed voter fraud and blew the whistle. But instead of being rewarded for her efforts, she was audited by the Internal Revenue Service. The Federal Bureau of Investigation came after. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms came after. And even the Occupational Safety and Health Administration came after. They were trying to silence her. Of course, she said, she's an American, and she's never been active in the process before, but she's basically saying they can do whatever they want to me. I ain't quitting, And now I don't know what she's doing these days, but that just shows you, and of course, back during the Obama administration, if you were conservative, I mean, these people will do anything, to stop what you're doing. It's just like ever since the election, I don't even get on Facebook anymore because everything I've written that has anything to do about the election, they're blocking it. It's not even getting out there. So I'd say, what the heck? I'm not doing this anymore, I mean, I never thought I'd live to see this day. I mean, what's going on, But anybody got anything to add to all that, or?
Well, go ahead, Tammy.
My friend, who's a constitutional attorney, Cece Heil, who works for ACLJ, we were all at her house the night of the election. And I'm literally surprised her neighbors didn't call the police on us because we were outside screaming at the TV because at some point we're all looking at the TV going, can you believe what's happening? And, she still thinks that, once we work our way through the court system, that Trump is going to be victorious. Mm-hmm. But we just have to, it was, 37 days with Bush and Gore.
Well, here's the thing. I believe that if Trump loses, I don't think we're going to do anything. I don't think the conservatives are. I don't think they're going to take their guns and go kill people.
Oh, we're
and
not
all
going
that.
to do. We're not going to do that. But you
Okay.
may see some protests.
You mean
Right.
if he, you mean
Yeah,
if
yeah,
he,
yeah.
You
You
mean if he?
I'm
You
saying
mean if it doesn't? You mean if it goes through the court and
no. Yeah, well, even if it goes through the court, I'm saying if Biden's election stands, you're
Well,
not
by
you're-
which method? What do you have to clarify? What you
Well,
mean?
it doesn't matter.
Hook or
I'm
crook?
trying to make a point here. I'm just saying, regardless of whether he loses in court or whether he just says, well, we're not going to fight this thing, however he wants to do it, I'm just making a point that I don't believe that you might have a few wackos out there here and there, but for the most part, we're not going to band together. We're not going to go out and start killing people. We're not going to burn things down. We're not going to shoot things up. We're not going to loot stores and blah, blah, blah. But I guarantee you that if Trump is successful in the courts, we're going to have a heck of a war on our hands.
Oh yeah, yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Well,
know.
here's the difference, right? You know, who's the side of the discussion, and I don't want to get tribalistic here, but you know, just looking at the history, looking at the state of our culture, which side, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, however you want to call it, which one are the ones who are respecting property rights, who
Always.
value life?
Right.
Like, you know, when I look at these protests and riots or, you know, these burnings and lootings, I'm thinking to myself, goodness gracious, what about the guy who owns the store?
Yeah.
You know?
in the neighborhoods.
There,
that-
and then you have another side of the discussion, and I'm speaking in generalities, but you have another side of the discussion that says, hey, this place needs to burn down, it's, you know, until we get justice.
Right.
And I'm saying, which one sound, and there's your difference right there, it's values.
Absolutely.
They have warped values.
Absolutely.
They see anything. It's means to an end.
Right.
I don't know
if a
if they
black
have.
business burns down, it's because it's means to an end. If if someone dies, it's means to an end.
right.
It's the difference is values. There's a lot that I want, or there are things that I want in this world.
And
Okay,
look
there are
at
things that I want in this world, but I'm not going to take advantage of someone else to get them. That's
Right.
called values.
right. Absolutely. Look at George. Well, go ahead. You getting ready
Well,
to say something?
when you see, you know, that more black babies are aborted in the state of New York than that are ever born.
Right.
I mean, it happens in the white community too. There's abortions in the white
Right.
community too. When we show people that we don't value life,
Right.
a human being, a living soul, what does a building mean?
Right.
It means nothing.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and somebody else will come along, and you know, some capitalists will come along and build a Walgreens on top of what used to be a Rite Aid or something like that. But before the election, if y'all remember, they were showing these big cities, DC and a lot of, you know, Philly, they were boarding up like a hurricane was about to go through there because they knew that Trump was going to win. If they had an inkling that Biden was going to win, they would have never boarded up those walls because that's not what we do. We pull up our laces, tighten them
no.
up again, and
Plywood's cheaper than glass. I
and
don't
we
care
head
which
on
way the
we head on
election
we head
goes.
on to work. I mean, because even the people that I've talked to have said, well, if we got Biden, we've got the Senate, we've got the House, we got this, that, and the other, and we made it through 8 years of Obama, we'll make it through 4 years of Biden. You know, they're going, okay, I'm gonna work some more extra hours, and I'm going to plant a garden. You know, we're going to recycle our aluminum foil like, you know, they did in the Depression. You know, we're going to start making those measures. We're not talking about posseing up people and, you know, taking pitchforks and flames.
Well, see, I think I'll be honest with you. If there was a leader out there right now, like a George Washington or somebody that, or a group of people like, let's say the states, you know, that went red this time. If they said, "Okay, guys, we're going to band together and create our own country," I think a lot of conservatives would follow that. Okay, now, but that's when you got leadership and you know you got money, and just like in the American Revolution, you had George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all the moneyed interests that were fighting against Britain. The common folk went along, okay, because they had leadership. Okay. Same way with the Civil War, you had the southern states went out, and then the common folk followed suit. Now, I'm not justifying what the South did, but in this case, there's no leadership. If right now the difference between conservative and what's going on with these people, they have leadership. They have people funding them. They have people paying for them to be out there. We don't have any of that.
We do.
Well, but
We do.
but the point I'm trying to make, though, I don't know where to go. I mean, I'm so mad right now. I'd love to join a militia or whatever, but I'm just saying, I don't see the leadership on our side, and all I'm saying is that the way conservatives might react to all this is that, if you come to get our guns, you come to stop us from having free speech and all that, then we might fight back. But it's going to be a one-man show. It's going to be a everybody for himself type thing, And I'm just saying where that's where we're different, I think, from their side, because.
Well, they already knew they were going to do this. We should have known they were going to do it. I'm looking at two groups right now. One of
Right.
the guys that has organized all these rallies says, we're going to Georgia in a couple of weeks. Stand by. And I also spoke with someone from Americans from Prosperity,
Right.
and that they're sending groups. You can either drive down and go down and come back, or they're going to send you down there and they'll pay for your hotel or whatever.
Right.
So it's going to be a little while, because like in Nevada, I think it was Nevada today,
Right.
that they took 2,800 depositions because there was 2,800 instances of voter fraud. So they've got to, when you're talking in a case and everything, you got to get all that stuff ready. So right now we're in a process. It looks like it's a vacuum, but there's so much going on under the undercurrent that it's gonna eventually come out, and then we'll be dispatched. People go, okay, let's go down there. We're gonna do this or we're gonna do that. It's not gonna be any, get your pitchforks or your guns or anything like that.
Right.
We're gonna handle this through the court system.
Well, but that's the difference. I mean, we do that. We do it through through the rule of law, through try to reason, logic, the whole bit. And that's the big difference between us and those people out here burning everything down, shooting everything up, killing people, whatever. We don't do that, for the most part. And
When they go low, we go high.
Well, let's talk about there's a potential wrench in all of this thing, which is the Georgia, the Senate race, and what's going on with Doug Collins down there and those guys, and whether we end up still having majority in Senate or not. That's
somebody explained to me. I've been out of the news loop because
I looked at it today. They had five players listed. They had Doug, Doug Collins, and they had an incumbent, and they had a couple of Democrats, but they had a number of like five people on the screen, all related to Georgia and what was going on then. I don't know how that works.
All right, but somebody you might be able to explain this to me. We had before the election, we had 53 votes, right? I mean, we had 53 to their 47, right? A majority
In
in the
the
Senate.
House, in the Senate.
In the Senate, not
Yes.
the House.
Yes.
Okay. I now understand that we can only lose one seat in Georgia, but if we lose two, we're screwed. Okay.
Well, and I haven't kept up with it. I've kind of been off the TV to keep my sanity
Right.
for the last week. But one thing I do know is there are 4 really conservative liberals or Democrats that they think that will come and flip with us.
What do you mean flip? Like?
No, I mean they'll caucus with us. They may still be a Democrat, but they'll come and vote.
But
They'll
they're
come and
not
vote
going
with
to
us.
become Republicans.
They're not going to become
Oh, okay.
Republicans unless unless they do
All
like
right,
they did John DeBerry and throw him out.
But here, this is what I'm trying to figure out. Where did we lose? Okay, we had to have lost several seats.
I don't
Where
know
do we lose them?
I don't know, because I saw earlier today that there was someone that ran for commissioner, and and it's not universal across the United States and the counties or the municipalities, but we have here in Tennessee, if your race is within a certain margin, it automatically triggers a recount. There was this young man who ran for commissioner. The margin was 107 votes. So they did the recount. They realized in the recount that they had given his opponent over 1,000 votes that should have been his, and they took them away from his opponent and gave them to him, and he won the race. They'd already told him he lost. He'd already conceded and
Yeah.
everything. So I don't think we're going to really know what happens until all
Yeah, but
this is.
what I'm trying to figure out is there had to be some senators that lost their seats to Democrats, right?
What I understand, the only thing I heard in terms of numbers was
Yeah.
now it's even. It's 48 and 48 or 49
Well,
and 49.
you got 100 senators, so you got to.
Well,
If we're even, it'd have to be 50-50.
they didn't do 50-50. They did
We've got a couple
because
that are
there's
independent.
because there's
Bernie
because
Sanders
there
is
because Georgia is undecided, so it didn't calculate to 100. Does that make sense?
No.
The numbers they're throwing on the TV are not 52 to 48, or whatever. They're not doing a total of 100 because everybody, it's all over the news. You guys got to watch it because this Georgia thing is gonna decide whether we lose the Senate or not.
Well, we're screwed if we lose the Senate. I mean,
I know that. But
We're-
I thought
well-
maybe we talked about. I thought maybe
Yeah.
you had looked into it further. You could explain it, but
I probably need to watch, but I tell you, I am.
that's why you get the big money, Greg. I'm
I know.
expecting you to dig
But
into this thing and
I've been
explain
on
it.
a news blackout since Arizona.
You guys put on. You watching Newsmax?
I don't
Yes.
watch. I don't have Newsmax.
Newsmax has
You
been
probably
up.
do.
Well,
It's not a premium
dump it into
channel.
your and dump it into your phone. You can put
Yeah.
it on your phone, and watch that. They've been pretty good. They're not
Yeah.
calling all the other stations are calling the election, which is
Right.
insane.
Right.
And Newsmax clearly made a statement that they're not
I'm
calling
going
it.
to tell you, it's not the media's job to call a presidential
No,
election.
but what I
It's
mean
not.
is
I had to have that
they're taking
conversation
they're
with my
attempting to
number
take
one
an
son.
Yeah.
they're attempting to take an unbiased opinion.
Right.
So they've been okay. The other thing about this stuff is you got to watch that. But the other thing is Bannon has been throwing his knowledge
Right.
into the White House and stuff, and he laid out 4 or 5. I can't repeat them because they're a little too complicated for me, but I don't have them on my fingertips. But 4 or 5 avenues that they can tap into. It's not one option here. You got a bunch of potential fraud type from signatures removed
Right.
to affidavits that have been signed, attesting to a supervisor squashing an employee coming over with something and the supervisor and it's been in Biden's favor. Do it anyway. We got multiple instances of that.
There were
We got
hand counseling.
Huh?
There were hand counseling.
Hand
votes.
canceling.
Yeah.
You got the pen marks thing, the magic marker
Yeah, the
situation.
Sharpie.
You got 430,000 votes from multiple states that only have Biden's name on it. The other candidates and positions and various things are not even listed. The document was manipulated. You got 430,000
Right.
of those things. You got all these scenarios. So you got all that stuff, all those variables. Then you got Bannon coming in and saying, well, you don't have to, you got A, you can do B, C, D, and E. You can go after the electoral group on what they're doing. You can go after you got governors who are Republican or state legislatures that are Republican that can step in and do what they have to do. So there's a lot of options available to Trump. So he's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
This
The
is
Electoral College doesn't even vote until 12/14.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not even
So
involved yet.
nothing is going to be, and even if they do vote, and these court cases are still outstanding, that could make a difference in that.
He's got a shot. He has a shot.
Well, I hope you're right. I want to. I mean, not to, change the subject really, but I wanted to get back on what he was saying a while ago, Connor, about you know, the ends justify the means. One of the biggest people that's financing all this, George Soros, and I was watching an interview he did with 60 Minutes, and have y'all ever seen that interview? But have you seen it?
I've seen the quotes from it.
Okay, well, you talk about this guy is Saul Alinsky and Machiavelli all into one. Okay, he is the epitome of the person that is Machiavellian in a sense that he will do whatever evil he has to do.
This is the one where he's saying we're going to attack America through the black vote.
No, I didn't hear that, not in this interview. But anyway, he's the type person that will do whatever it takes that is evil to get his goal
The
accomplished.
ends justify the means.
He will do whatever is good to get his goal accomplished. You know, it just whatever. Okay. Now the good illustration of where he's coming from is like in World War II, his father was Jewish. His father wanted to try to say, you know, he's a Hungarian Jew. His father wanted to try to save him from the Nazis. So what he did, he had a friend who was a Christian. So he got this friend to adopt him as his godson. Okay, and what the Christian friend did was he basically told the lie that what's his name was George Soros was a Christian. That's how he got out of being persecuted. Okay, now if the story ended there, I would have said fine. You know, you do whatever you got to do to keep from being, you know, sent to the ovens. But he went around with this Christian, so-called Christian godfather, and they plundered all the Jewish homes of all their belongings after they'd been sent off to the concentration camp. And I can't remember the guy's name on 60 Minutes, but he asked him, he said, "Don't you feel any guilt about this?" He said, "No." He said, "I don't feel any guilt at all." He said, "They were going to be killed. They were going to rob them anyway. So I was there. I just did what, you know, I needed to do to survive." And to me, that sounds like it'd be like a mafia hitman. They got a contract on Connor, and you helped, the mafia hitman kill him, and when somebody said something to you, well, they were going to kill him anyway. I just helped. I mean, that's, to me, is the same thing. Another thing is that he's big on trying to get everybody else regulated. He runs a hedge fund. That's how he made his money. And he's big on getting everybody else regulated, but his headquarters is on a Caribbean island sitting out in the middle of the ocean where it can't be regulated by the SEC. These are the kind of things I'm talking about. And he don't see anything wrong with that, So here's a guy that's just totally amoral. Oh, and they asked him, he said, "Do you believe in God?" He said, "No, I don't believe in God," which is obvious, But this guy is turning American society upside down, almost single-handedly.
Well, the Michigan couple,
Right.
who walked out of their house to protect their property.
Right.
No,
that was St.
St.
Louis.
Louis.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
in St. Louis, that DA or the
that's
AG or the DA, I forgot who it was.
district attorney.
It was just it was a DA. Yeah, her funding, her campaign funding,
Come from him.
comes from George Soros.
And not
So-
only that, he has a program called the Secretary of, I forget the name of it, Secretary of State. It's like a Secretary of State fund. They also fund getting the Secretary of State of all these states, a Democrat into those offices that are funded by him,
Right.
you know.
So if he's down to a DA, he's fully infiltrated.
Well, he's going local.
he's-
That's where
You go local. So
you know. And if it wasn't for the conservative governor of Missouri, these guys would probably spend jail time. I think he pardoned them or said he was going to pardon them. But it just shows how much inroads this guy's making into our society.
Yeah.
My friend said it should be 52-48, but 50-50 when Georgia cheats.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess we can go ahead and end this thing. Anybody else got anything they want to add to all this? I did think, find it interesting that they had certain ways of people cheated years ago. It's been going on since the foundation of our country. It's mainly happened in the big cities that, especially where they had aliens coming in, from Europe and all that, and they would grab them, getting off the boat, and they would intimidate them into voting their way. And we didn't at one time. We didn't even have people registering to vote. You were allowed to vote if you were had property, you were white, you were male, And so one thing they did was they would take people. Trying to think, they had a name for it, but they would this thing got nothing to do with homosexuality, but they called it faggot voting. And what it was they would take people that didn't have any property that couldn't vote, and they would give them deeds to property and then send them in to vote. And then once they got through voting, they would take the deeds away from them. And but anyway, they've got all kinds of stuff, like stuffing ballots and ballot boxes, and sometimes in some communities the sheriff would just say this guy won, or whatever, and that, you had to deal with it basically, but they were talking about George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. They found out running, for office, the guy that had the most booze that he give out was the guy who won. And so it kind of came down to the guy that had money was the one that could win the, he could buy the booze, And so George Washington lost his first election that way, so he went out the next time and bought, set everybody up, with alcohol, and he was able to win. I forgot what office he was running for, but so it's been going on for a long time, but it's really highly organized now, and
they use the cover of COVID. There's things that have been done in our state. There are things that have been done here in our county under the cover of COVID that they got.
And that
done.
I believe that was the whole purpose of it. me and him having run an argument about whether this was actually something that was done on purpose or just accident and they exploited it, but I know for sure whether, even if it was an accident, the Democrats have made very good use of it, and they
never
found
let a
out
good
early
crisis
on.
go to waste.
Huh?
Never let a good crisis go to waste. Who said that?
Oh, that was Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back to that Davos, Switzerland meeting there with
Again, George Soros,
Bill Gates,
yeah,
representative for the Pope,
right,
Prince Charles.
right.
Everybody was there, and then stupidly they invited Trump in, and I think Trump went there twice, and I don't know about the first time, but the second time, he burned them.
He burned them.
He burned them bad.
Yeah.
You know, our country is never going to accept socialism,
Yeah.
and we always appreciate capitalism, and did the whole thing. So remember, he left, and then 2 days later, Soros calls a meeting brings everybody back in
Right.
Davos and says, "Don't worry, we're gonna take care of him." And there's Bill Gates, is there. So that the COVID,
Yeah.
and Bill Gates so heavily involved with the virus stuff and
The vaccine.
vaccinations, that whole thing that was on. It's been on TV about that whole thing, and then it pops up in his hometown, in the nursing home.
Right.
It's too much. Too much coincidence.
Well, and to me, in my opinion, he has too much access to our children. People, think that he's very, very benevolent, but he gives money and then he gives the computers and everything. And people don't think about how much data they're collecting from our kids from those computers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, the keystrokes, the little third eye up there, they see when you're not paying attention and things like that. It's incredible, all the stuff that they're collecting.
Right
Yeah.
now, somebody was on telling a story about being on a boat with his buddy, just sitting on a thing fishing, and they're talking about fishing poles, and then it comes up on the thing. It's.
I'd like to go to Maui. I guarantee you within the next 24 hours. I'm going to get an email on Maui flights or a hotel.
Oh yeah.
Watch and see. I'll show y'all.
Yeah.
I'll take a picture of it and show y'all.
Watch that special with what's his name, who defected to Russia?
I know you're talking about WikiLeaks.
He worked for the NSA.
Was it WikiLeaks?
Edward
Snowden. Yeah, watch the Snowden special. It's on Netflix or on one of those.
See, if I was Trump, I would just start releasing documents.
Speaking of Snowden, if Trump's out of office, I hope he does pardon Snowden, like before he's out. I don't want to talk that way, because I do see a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. But
He could still pardon him if he stays.
well, I'm saying,
Because- and
I'm saying,
that's-
why hasn't he?
Yeah,
well,
it's
but he
not-
wasn't never going to do it before the election. And that's the thing that they're so fearful of, because Trump really kind of governed himself as to what he was going to do, because he didn't want to lose the votes. But once he was reelected, I mean, I really saw him going out and tearing up.
Oh, I
some
think
stuff.
he would have.
Well,
Really just,
that's one thing, and I've been
But it's-
critical of Trump a lot. I still think he's more of a fighter for our freedom than anybody else in Washington,
Yep.
obviously. But one thing I do really, really, really like about Trump is he's not much of a demagogue. He doesn't pander for the votes. And if you're going to tell me, first of all, that the American people would not support him pardoning a whistleblower,
I think they would.
which is not, and it doesn't matter what the whistle was, okay? Like the American people, they would see him pardoning a whistleblower, and they would support that. The second thing is, I would really hate to think that Donald Trump would avoid doing that because he thought that the American people would not vote for him if he
I just
did.
think in the big scheme of things, it wasn't one of the first things that he was going to do. Because I can tell you, as an elected official, I get stuff in my mailbox all the time. And it may not be the whole story. It may be just a thread
Oh, one
of
thing.
corruption.
thing
People
you have-
send stuff to me and our other members
Yeah.
in the mail all the time.
One thing you have to take consideration, studying history, every president, no matter how great they are, you take Lincoln, you study. I just finished a book called The Army of the Potomac, Lincoln's Lieutenants. And there was constant political considerations that Lincoln had to take in consideration. Now, here was a guy who wasn't afraid to do whatever it took to win that war. But on the other hand, like, for example, he didn't feel like he could fire McClellan until after the midterm elections in 1862, which he did once the election was over. Almost the next day, he got rid of him, you take, there were people that politically, generals that he had to deal with that were just totally incompetent, like Ben Butler and like Franz Siegel and people that he was keeping Franz Siegel to try to get the German vote, and then Ben Butler was a war Democrat, and you had all these factions he had to appeal to and everything. Now, once it got to the point toward the end of the war that he could afford to get rid of Siegel after the 1864 election, Siegel went by the wayside and Ben Butler went by the wayside, and all these people he was okay. So the point I'm trying to make in here is that everybody talks that Trump is not political. He has to be to a certain extent.
Yeah.
He's 3D.
Well,
He plays chess in 3D.
I'd watch out for that. But I don't think a lot of people that get into 3D 4D chess thing with Trump, I just don't buy it a lot of the time. I think he's reactionary a lot of the time. But I will say this, like Lincoln, for example, as much as I enjoy Lincoln, there's a reason. Like at one point, he was pandering so much to the white supremacists back in that day that he was supporting colonization.
I think Lincoln, for his day, what did have.
Well, that was a progressive view that was a somewhat progressive view of the day. But,
well, what I mean is, Lincoln was a man of his time. He did have a racist.
Yeah, but he didn't. That's the thing. I'm saying he did not believe. He didn't. You're going to tell me that Lincoln supported, in his own mind, not out loud, but in his own mind, Lincoln supported colonization.
I think Lincoln was looking for a solution. He was looking for which he thought colonization. A lot of times you got to take in consideration not only what he thought, but what he thought would work with the American people. And I think he looked at colonization as a solution, not necessarily. I don't know how much his heart was into colonization. Well, one thing I can tell you about Lincoln, though, and this debate comes up all the time. Yes, Lincoln was, you can establish a strong case that Lincoln was anti-slavery, okay? He always had been all his life. But he was a pragmatic politician. And he, like in the debates with Stephen Douglas, he was race baiting in those debates. He was, Stephen Douglas was saying, "Oh, you're out here saying that you want white women to have marry black men and stuff like that." And he was having to defend his position. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I don't believe that, they're socially and morally equal.
Yeah, I know, but
that type thing. Well,
that's an out. I don't know. Are we going to get into a Lincoln debate right here?
No. But
I will say that that debate is an outlier. For the most of his political career.
But he had to get elected in order to have the power to do.
I know. I'm saying he did not believe in. I don't think he believed in colonization. I don't believe anything in that debate was legit. I think you gotta. I don't know.
But see what?
What am I trying to say here? I think. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're agreeing. We're yelling at each other and agreeing.
But the good thing about Lincoln
was politics.
The good thing about Lincoln, though, was when the opportunity presented itself, he adjusted to that opportunity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't go from, in fear. I don't want to free the slaves. I believe or colonization might be yada yada yada, and then flip to, hey, we should give blacks the vote.
Hey, she ain't lying. They removed Pennsylvania from Biden's electoral total.
All right.
That's a
It's
good
come
deal.
from rear clear politics.
All right.
That's
This
a good deal.
Breaking
podcast-
news.
Connor, I just want to.
This podcast won't come out for a day or two, but breaking news.
I just got to stick up for my boy a little bit, but I don't see him as reactive so much. I see him more intuitive. Trump. I've seen the things he's done. I think he's been ahead of the curve.
Well, especially in foreign policy.
Quite a few times.
Well,
so
I'll-
I
So
don't.
look, he
I just
came
don't.
out and said what they bugged my office at Trump Tower.
I mean,
And people thought
from the
people thought he was insane. And you know, when he started that, I was like, he's either
All right.
telling the truth or he's.
Oh, I knew he was telling the truth. I
But
knew from the get go.
But
All right.
yeah, so
And that
He came out.
case,
But
He came out with fake. He's the first time he said fake news.
yeah,
I was like, what?
Well,
Like,
see,
what-
that's
what is
where
that?
that's
Yeah.
where he's ahead of the game
Yeah.
because I'm gonna tell you what.
That's what I'm talking about.
I heard him say. We were talking about fake news. At least like niche groups of people on the internet and whatnot. They were talking about fake news.
Yeah,
You're-
but
Yeah, but he
fake-
took it
that's-
to a national
that's the
level.
Point I'm getting
National
ready
level.
to
He
make.
took it to a
Yeah,
national
but
level.
The reason he got the votes is because people already that you had a belief system in the United States, and then a candidate came up and said what people were already
Well,
thinking.
wait a minute. Wait a
It did
minute.
not
Let's-
work the other way around.
I know a little bit about this. Obama's the one that started the fake news angle, and because he was trying to steal a march on the Republicans and trying to make it like this thing like right now, like every time you post something on Facebook that they disagree with, they can say it's fake news. Okay, but Trump. And I thought this is brilliant. He did a hostile takeover of that term.
Yep.
And what he did was he knew that Americans hated the news.
Yep.
They didn't trust it, and
Absolutely.
he
That's
capitalized.
that's
on it.
called-
exactly what I'm saying.
That's
is
called
exactly what I'm
insight.
saying.
That's
Yeah.
insight.
No, I think he that's what I'm saying. He reacted to the culture. That's why he won in the
But you
first
got-
place.
but you
and
gotta
if you
be
want to
a-
say, hey, 3D, 4D chest, maybe he wanted Biden to steal the election. Maybe he's right where maybe Biden's right where Trump wants him.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even know what 3D chess is. I've never played chess, so I don't even know
Well,
what
it's
you're
actually
talking
4D
about.
chess. 3D chess is just chess. But yeah.
Well, anyway,
I will tell you, just for my position, people come to me and tell me things, and I'm just local, okay? But him being a president, him being a fighter, him having a backbone, I guarantee you there are people from all over the United States and other countries that are spilling the tea with him
Oh yeah.
and telling him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm not arguing that he doesn't know any more than us. I'm
But
just saying I don't think he's 16 steps ahead of I don't think he's 16 steps ahead of everybody in the world. I just don't.
But we're not taking, we're not taking it to the
you
extreme.
may be right to a point, but I'm going to tell you something. How many people could get by 4 years after what these people have thrown at it
Yep.
and come out on
Yep.
top
yeah,
From everybody.
from every
I'm not
angle?
Every
saying
angle.
Every
I'm not-
angle.
Every
I'm
possible.
not
I
saying
mean, even
he
witches.
didn't- I'm not saying
That-
he's
it's a spiritual
not
thing.
persevering. I'm saying, listen. I want you to give me an example of somewhere where, you know, everybody fell for some kind of trap that Trump put in place, and he was able to say, checkmate. Give me an example right here, right now. And I know this is a bad debate tactic, but burden of proof is on the person who challenged me.
I think the fact that he hasn't given them the ammunition to prove himself to be what they've said he is. But for example, he'll get up and give a speech like at the the State of the Union address. That's brilliant. I mean, it's very positive, very forward, very inspiring, and he's got his capability of his tweets and things like that, and saying some pretty weird stuff. But for the most part, they try to paint him this Hitler image and all that. He tends to come about. He comes off as the most mature guy in the room most of the time. Now,
Actually,
now,
the only time I see him reactionary
'cause,
is when they
you know,
when they go after him,
yeah.
and he
Or his
responds.
kids.
They've been going
He
after.
responds to attacks.
Yes, Jimmy. They've been going after him for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah. So
Of course, he's always reactionary.
right. So that's when
Well,
he reacts.
not really
And
till he
politicians are actual morons. You're like it's like being the daycare teacher to a lot of these events. They're complete morons. I am 25 years old. I hear some of these people talk, and I'm like, what is their problem? Why is their IQ below 80? Okay, that is not an argument. They're all stupid, and they just were able to convince people to vote for them.
Well, I want.
There are some. Can't argue with that.
I believe
There are
conservatives. I really believe that most conservatives. I'm not going to say all of them. I know conservatives that they're mindlessly follow Trump no matter what he does. I get that. All right, but
I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about you're saying like he's the smartest, most mature or brilliant person in the room. I'm like, how is that a?
I didn't say he's the most brilliant. I just think that he proves them wrong all the time. Same way
but
with
that's
Reagan,
but they're
you know?
stupid.
Who's
They're
stupid?
These Democratic politicians and the media and all these people attacking them from all fronts. Like, take for example the bull crap where they're like, "Oh, he said there are good people on both sides. He said there are good people on both sides." And then you just watch like 30 seconds into the clip the other direction, and he's like, "I'm not talking about the white supremacists." And then they'll go on the news and say, "He's talking about the white supremacists. He's talking about the white supremacists." Oh, you just said he didn't. And here's the thing: they're so stupid. And it's really an insult to the American public's intelligence. But they're so stupid they get it.
It's
They
not,
think they
but
get
the
away
people,
with it.
People
but the
believe that.
people won't do the
I mean,
research.
I still have to
Yeah,
deal.
people are stupid too, and they
won't
take
do the
advantage
research.
of them.
But that's
won't do
what
the
I was
But you
getting ready
think
to say.
if they were smart, they would have
I
some
think-
kind of more brilliant
I
tactic.
think people on our side generally are more well informed and smarter and more educated than the average person. I really do. I don't mean. I'm not saying everybody, but I think most people that think like we do, there's probably a whole lot of people out there like us, that are deep thinkers. We're we're objective about things and all that. I think we tend to be more informed. We don't mind. It's just like if we had a communist come down and sit in that chair right there, I would gladly welcome him. I want to know what the heck he's thinking. Now, why is he thinking like that? I'm not going to say, get your butt out of this room because you're a communist, to me, that's the mark of intelligence, just being able to sit down and have a talk with
Yeah,
somebody.
but here's my argument. I'm just saying, Trump's gonna, or if Trump seems like he's smarter than these people, than the media, or your Democrat politicians, or your like establishment Republicans, it's because they're stupid.
How smart? But here's the thing.
We're not talking about intelligence. You started this conversation with how the tactic or the style of how they perform. So you brought him up as you categorized him as reactionary. That's how this conversation started.
Yeah,
gotta
well,
be
I
pretty-
said I don't think he plays 4D
You're
chess. I
going
think he's
in a different
reactionary.
direction, I think, a little bit.
Well, he
But-
said that.
Well,
He's the one he's the steer to the conversation that way.
Steering what way?
You said I said, give me an example, and you said, well, look at him whenever he, what'd you say?
I was just saying he proves his critics wrong all the time. I mean, he doesn't for the most part. And even if they make him out to be like you said about the where they said he said there's good, he was praising the white supremacists. Okay, he didn't say that. Okay,
I know,
but listen, hear me out. What I'm saying is they don't tell the truth about him, and so if you just told the truth about Donald Trump, he would come across as a lot smarter than he is.
Yeah, and I know, but my point whenever I was saying that is, whenever I say he's reactionary, and you're saying, well, he's being attacked for like he reacts when he's attacked. Well, he's always being attacked.
Okay. And
And
that's
if
all
he's
he's
proving,
got time to do.
if he's having to prove his critics wrong,
Yeah.
am I wrong to call that a reaction?
There's nothing wrong with reacting to a
Look,
situation.
If no, he's
I'm
the only
saying
one
it's
that's
a
going to
good-
take
I
up
think
for
it's a
himself.
good thing. I don't want this person like and if you
but
if you look behind the curtain,
but we got to give the devil his due here. I mean, here's a man who came in office, never been in a political job in his freaking life. Okay, look at what this man's accomplished with all this going on, all these strike,
I know.
reactions,
and all he
from
had
people.
and all he had to do.
Policy alone.
Wait, I can't hear you. You're not in the mic.
I just said you could look at his foreign policy.
And
Brilliant.
all he
brilliant.
all he
Really
had to
brilliant.
do was stay true to the will of the American people.
And that's what he's done.
And I'm just saying, I think we're.
But that in itself is why I give him a lot of credit, because
I think that's a good thing, and I think it's a better message than
But you got
a certain letter-
You got to be pretty insightful, because Ronald Reagan was a lot like Trump. In other words, Reagan had his hand on the pulse of the people. You got to be a pretty wise guy to know the people, and to
I think I believe you. I think that is correct. I was challenged in saying I don't believe that he plays 4D chess. I think he's smart. I think.
Well, I didn't challenge you. I don't even know.
Oh,
what
I know.
that is.
I know.
I started that and started it wrong.
I'm just defending myself here, but I'm saying I do, like me saying that, it's not me insulting the man, because I'd rather have a president who reacts to the will of the American people before I'd rather have a president who's playing games with the American people.
Well, take George Washington, for example.
I think that's a better thing.
Yeah, I agree. Take George Washington. Really, if you find some of our greatest presidents weren't what you would call intellectual men. They weren't really brilliant in a sense. Now, George Washington was a lot smarter than people gave him credit for. Reagan was a lot smarter than people gave. I feel like Trump's a lot smarter. Now, Abraham Lincoln was a natural genius, but the point is though, you take George Washington. Here was a guy who he didn't have all them. He wasn't a man of letters, but at the same time, he knew how to lead men. He knew how to he had his hand on the pulse of the people, and look at the things that he did, like the presidents he set. Here's a guy who fought 8 years, got our independence, could have been king, and stepped down. And went back to his farm, and you take, he was there to help. He was the glue that kept the Constitutional Convention together. He was, as president, he set the precedent of 2 terms as president. It wasn't law. He just set that precedent because he felt like history, future generations were looking at him, and he had to set a precedent for them. And integrity and all those things that come with that office, and this guy wasn't he wasn't Thomas Jefferson, he wasn't John Adams even,
And here's what's even more beautiful about it. We think of the word president now as this like thing of high regard. Back then it was, you mean like the president of the local lodge,
right.
And it was a very humble title to give to such a position in that day. Nowadays it's the president, but back then it was like saying, oh, I'm the president of the local book club. I don't
Yeah, well, they back then had a big controversy over what to even call Washington as a general. They called him as his excellence.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like that's quite the humble. That's quite the humble thing to call such a, and nowadays it's like, and like the point is like, hey, this shouldn't affect your life too much.
Can you imagine Joe Biden spending 12 years in the Senate and saying, you know, it's time to step down. I've been a public servant. I don't want to, you know, make this into a career. And
You're what,
establish
30? We're 33 years out from that.
yeah.
Good.
I'd like to see Trump adopt.
That's what I cannot stand about these people, man.
Yeah.
It's just like he was a lifeguard, and then he was a politician, and then he, you know,
You talking
grew
about
up.
Biden?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he just spends his whole life in politics, and then, you know, and then he just
AOC was
it's-
a bartender and,
Yeah.
and an actor.
I
It's
honestly,
like
I don't know how you do
people
it.
don't understand.
If you do it correctly,
Here's
I
what a
don't know how you
lot
do
of
it.
people don't understand whenever they, you know, they just sit in front of the television all day and then they come to you and say, "How could you like the Orange Man?" It's because he hasn't been clawing his way to power for 50 years. And then he comes in his 70s where he's bleeding from his eyes and he's stumbling over his words and he's like, "Give me the power. Give me the power."
Yeah.
I'm starting to sound like Alex Jones over here, but I don't care. These It's like that's just the reality of it. That's what he's been doing for.
I won't worry
He
about
says
you.
to us. He says to us, I'm running because of Charlottesville."
All right.
He's run for president how many times?
Yeah.
4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many Charlottesvilles have there been?
And he's and the thing about it is he's you talk about white supremacy. He's his
The racial jungle.
He,
He
I
and
don't
Hillary
want my
would-
kids.
would
I don't
then
want my
Robert
kids
KKK
growing up in a.
Byrd.
I don't
Yeah.
want my kids growing up in a racial jungle.
now everything that they've accused
what-
Donald Trump of, he's done. You
And
know?
he's just been, and that's the thing. He's run for president 4 or 5 times, and he comes in front of us in front of this debate, and he says, "I'm running because of Charlottesville." It's like, dude, you've been clawing your way to power for 50 years.
yeah.
Contrast that with George Washington.
And ain't done nothing. You know, I mean,
Yeah, he's passed one bill, and then 2 years ago, in last minute, he's like, "I really regret the crime bill."
yeah.
Like, you
The
know,
only bill he's ever
he was proud of that bill until like 15 days ago. He was proud of it. It's the one thing he's done in 40 odd years. It's the one bill he forged,
Yeah.
and now he says he hates it.
Well, he hates it because
Am I going insane? This is supposed to. I'm
That's what
supposed to
I'm saying.
believe this man won. He's going to be our next president. He's forged one bill in 50 years, and he says he regrets it. That would be. It's insanity.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. The world's gone mad.
Greg, I like that concept though about His Excellency. I think we should I'd push that forward for Trump. Absolutely.
oh, you're going to see some heads
Oh,
explode.
I'd love that. I would love that.
see some heads.
Harris
His
Pelosi
Excellency.
2021.
His,
I'll make a
His
deal
Excellency has entered the room. I'd love that.
I'll make a deal with you. If he can win his way out of this situation right here, I'll call him His Excellency.
Oh man,
Whatever he wants.
awesome.
But
We're
we
wrapping.
better-
We done?
Yeah, let's go ahead and end this up. I'm gonna say the word prayer here. So,
We need some prayers.
Lord Jesus, here's the deal. We know how this thing ends. We know it's all in your hands. We know that you got it. And so from that standpoint, we don't have anything to worry about. But Lord, we love our country, and we want to see our families, our children, our grandchildren. We want to see them live happy lives, be able to pursue the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that we've all been promised, Lord, as Americans. And Lord, help us to realize how blessed we are to live in this country. And Lord, we just want to keep it that way. We want to keep it to the point where, we can always love this country. We can always, when we get off the plane coming back from other countries, that, we still have that urge to get down on our hands and knees and kiss the ground because we love this country. And Lord, we're not putting this country above you, but we feel like you have blessed this country, and we want it to continue to be blessed. And we pray, Lord, for our families, put a hedge of protection around our families during these trying times. Put a hedge of protection around Donald Trump. We even pray for Joe Biden. Lord, we pray that all these people, these people that have tried to do some evil things, Lord, we just pray that you would change their hearts. And we can say anybody on our side of the fence that needs that, Lord, we pray that you would do that too. But we just pray for transformation of this country, Lord. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.